guys, welcome back to World of Tanks. My name is Bruce and today we take a look at the new Czech Tier 8 heavy tank, the TNH 105-1000 that has entered the game with update 1.14. If you're interested in more reviews and gameplay, go to YouTube and search for World of Tanks with Bruce to get all of my videos, or click on the subscribe button. And now let's go. Talking about the tank statistics, as you can see, I want to compare the single shot gun of the TNH 105 with the other single shot heavy tanks, so with the 53 TP, with the T32 and with the Carnarvon. And then here you can see the TNH 105 with its two-shot autoloader gun, and I'm comparing this tank to the WoT 54 because I do think that the playstyle is pretty unique between those two tanks, but then also against the IS-22 and finally against the premium version, the Skoda T56. So let's start with the single shot gun. As you can see, the TNH 105 does have the best penetration value of all heavy tanks, however the lowest DPM, only 2000, basically comparable to the 53 TP. However, with this tank you can trade much better because it does have 420 alpha instead of only 320, and the T32 does have a better DPM, and obviously the Carnarvon does have a much better DPM. Now, the shell velocity is, yeah, I would say okay-ish, definitely nothing which is fantastic, but comparable to the other heavy tanks. And then when it comes to the gun handling, aim time 2.21 is okay, not as bad as on the 53 TP, however, yeah, as good as on the Carnarvon. However, what holds this tank back is the dispersion values, not so much the base dispersion, 0.34. So with a single shot gun, the tank is pretty accurate. If you compare it to the two-shot autoloader gun, 0.04 better, so 0.34 instead of 0.338. However, what holds this tank back is the bad dispersion while moving. So 0.2 is worst in class and not nearly as good as the 0.15 that the Carnarvon does have, and you can really, yeah, you really do feel this in battle. In the battle, it is the gun does not feel as accurate as you might think it is on paper. However, at least with a single shot gun, it is much better compared to the 0.38 of the two-shot autoloader gun. Now, the next problem this tank has is only 7 degrees of gun depression. Now 7 degrees is more than some of the Russian heavy tanks have. However, 7 degrees is just not good enough to play on every ridgeline, on every important position in World of Tanks, and it just feels that it is not enough, and you will see this later on in the game. 8 degrees is better, 10 degrees is a value where you can really play the important positions, and so this is quite lackluster of this tank. Now, mobility wise, it looks like the tank is pretty mobile, has the best mobility compared to all other heavy tanks. However, I'm actually not sure. I think it's due to the really bad terrain resistance values, 0.15, 1.44 and 2.21, and the tank just does not feel as mobile as it makes the impression on paper. 50 kilometers per hour top speed, and I actually almost never reached 50 kilometers per hour. Even going down slope, I had problems reaching 50. So, in my opinion, other tanks, I don't know, feel more mobile, or maybe I just had, I don't know, had the expectation that this tank is pretty mobile, and then I was pretty disappointed. Yeah, on paper it does have the best power to weight ratio, however, it just does not feel as mobile, and I think this is the expectation I had. I thought that it would be as mobile as the WoT 54 with its 17.71 power to weight ratio. However, yeah, that is not what it is. Talking about the armor actually looks pretty nice on paper as well, but we'll take a look at this later on. The armor is, I wouldn't say disappointing, it is relatively nice, however the huge cupola on top of the tank is what holds this tank back, so armor wise also in my opinion not as good as it looks on paper. And then the rest of the stats, only 307 meters of view range, as bad as the 53 TP. As you can see, the T32 and the Carnarvon do have 400 meters of view range, so once again not a good value. So all in all, the stats of the TNH 105 look nice on paper, however in reality the tank just feels worse, as you might have the impression looking at the stats. Now if we compare the tank to its autoloader competitors, it does have the same bad DPM as the Progetto 54. However, the Progetto 54 does have the advantage that it does have an auto reloading gun. So with the Progetto 54, it feels that you have at least one shell in your autoloader all the time, and that is not true for the TNH 105, because after you have shot your two shots, you have to wait for 22 seconds before you can start your next engagement. And this was a problem in the battle, and we'll see this later on in the gameplay. Now the Skoda T56 does have the same problem basically, however as you can see it does have a much better DPM, and here I'm just yeah, I'm a little bit frustrated because I cannot understand why the gap between the Tech Tree tank and the premium tank does need so tremendously huge. In my opinion, the reload time of the full clip of the TNH 105 should be quite a bit lower, so that it does have at least the same DPM of the Skoda T56. Because it doesn't have the alpha, you can only deal 640 damage within 2.5 seconds, and don't get me wrong, this is a fantastic value. However, the gun handling is pretty mediocre, so you will definitely not make your two shots most of the time. Plus the DPM is then tremendously low, and as I said, yes, the Progetto 54 does have the same bad DPM, however with a 3-shot auto reloading gun, your gun is reloading every time, and so you have to wait only, let's say, 12 seconds or so until you can fire your next shell, and not 22 seconds. So yeah, the gun handling is worse compared to the single shot gun. We just talked about that. 2.59 seconds of aiming time and 0.38 dispersion. Now 0.38 dispersion does not look too bad, to be quite honest. However, in reality it feels pretty bad. Yeah, so combined with worse dispersion values while moving the turret or the tank, gun handling is, in my opinion, pretty lackluster. And yeah, all in all, I think the tank is on the lower side. It is one of the worst, or let's say one of the worst tier 8 tanks in my opinion, because it is just, yeah, balanced too much in my opinion. The reload time should be lower for the 320 Alpha in my opinion, and the gun handling of the autoloader gun should be a little bit better. Now we'll come to this, we'll see some gameplay with a 2-shot autoloader gun as well as with the single shot gun, and in my opinion it really depends on your playstyle. Usually the autoloader gun should be better because you have an autoloader, right? However, due to the bad gun handling, it really makes sense to play the TNH 105 with a single shot gun in particular circumstances or in particular game situations. Yeah, we talked about the rest of it, and now let's take a look at the armor profile. One thing to mention, as you can see, the IS-22 also does have basically a 2-shot autoloader gun, and you can make, you can deal all your damage at once if you do the double shot, so you can deal 600 damage at once. Plus the gun handling is much better. As you can see, 2.4 seconds aiming time, 0.36 dispersion compared to 0.38, plus a much better 0.15 dispersion while turning the turret or the tank. Best in class, also the turret traverse, 0.08 compared to the 1 0.12, so much better gun handling on the IS-2 too. Yeah, so all in all, I was a little bit disappointed of the TNH 105, and now let's take a look at the armor profile. This is how the armor profile of the TNH 105-1000 looks like, standing on an even surface, and as you can see, the upper hull is not too bad. 212 millimeters of armor, 215, maybe, yeah, 215 on the side. However, so all in all, it means that your upper hull can be penetrated for, let's say, from most of the tier 8 tanks, not reliably. However, it can be penetrated even with silver ammo. That is what you have to keep in mind. Now the turret is pretty strong, as you can see, with this spaced armor, 300, 400 millimeters, 270 on the next to the gun mantlet, which is pretty strong. Now the gun mantlet is also pretty strong, 280, as you can see, and then there's a weak spot, a little weak spot on the left hand side of the tank, right below the cupola, which is only 230. However, all in all, the turret armor is pretty solid on this tank. However, there is this huge cupola on top, which is only has 150 millimeters of armor, 180 on the sides. So this can be penetrated even by tier 6 tanks, and that is the problem of the tank. Because if you're using your 7 degrees of gun depression, which is not too much, as we just talked about, as you can see, you can not hide your cupola. Your cupola stays relatively huge, so you will not be able to fight on a ridgeline and hide your weak spots like on other tanks. And that is the big problem of this tank. You can't really hide this gigantic weak spot, and that is basically the problem. Plus, you're opening up some small weak spots right here on this side, and then on this side only 165 to, let's say, 180. However, this is pretty tough to hit. Now the upper hull gets relatively strong for a tier 8 tank, as you can see, 255-ish, 258, 267 on the sides. However, it does have the same problem with the same problem compared to the VIII 44-1, and that is this area here can be penetrated super easily, also with HE, and then also on the other side. So that means that you are not supposed to really peek out much with this tank, only just a little bit to just show the upper portion of the upper hull. Lower hull obviously is a weak spot, pretty easy to penetrate. And yeah, I think the biggest problem of this tank is its huge cupola. That means that you cannot allow to go into a close combat fight with this tank, because everybody will be able to penetrate your cupola. Now, talking about side scraping, yes, you can side scrape with this tank. However, you should make sure that you don't over angle your tank too much. As you can see, as soon as you start to over angle, the side of the tank gets relatively weak, 180 millimeters, and even if you have the impression that your this portion here on the upper side is still angled at a ricochet angle, the lower part is easy to penetrate, so don't over angle the tank. And then the problem of this tank is obviously due to the little weak spot here, this little area here, plus the huge cupola. This means that you should, if at all, not side scrape like this, but then side scrape to the other side, because then at least it is possible to hide, let's say a part of the cupola, and maybe you make it harder to hit this little spot here. Now the last thing we have to mention is, obviously we were talking now about the armor profile compared to the 224 millimeters of penetration value of the TNH 105. Now if we take a look at a tank which does have a lower number of penetration, but which is also possible on tier 8, so let's take a look at the T32, which has only 208 millimeters of penetration. Then, as you can see, the armor is a little bit better. However, the upper hull can still be penetrated. And now if you use your gun depression, your armor gets relatively strong. However, as I said, you still have the cupola. And now let's compare the armor to the excellent penetration of a tier 9 medium tank. Let's take the Leopard PTA with its 278mm of penetration. And as you can see, against top tiers, your armor is, I would say, unusable. This is a 100% weak spot, as well as the cupola is, as well as the upper hull is, as well as the lower hull is, and even on the side next to the gun mantlet with the spaced armor, you have a 50% of penetrating the tank. So just like on the VZ 44-1, the armor profile is good against tier 8 tanks. Certainly against tier 7 and tier 6 tanks. However, against tier 8 tanks using premium ammo or against tier 9 tanks, the armor pretty much gets useless, and you definitely have to keep this in mind. So how do I play this tank? As you can see, my crew does have brothers in arms, obviously 6 tanks, and then the commander has situational awareness as well as recon, at least at 94%. And then I went for the repair skill for the gunner and for the driver, and then on the loader I leveled up intuition, because I do think that it is super nice nowadays in World of Tanks, as well as safe storage, and then repairs is at 49%. And then for the rest I leveled up the gun handling skills, and I think with 3, almost 4 skills my crew is pretty much set up. Now I do play the tank with ventilation, with stabilizer, and with turbocharger. I changed the setup quite often. I tried out optics, I tried out with or without turbocharger, but I do believe that this tank really benefits from the turbocharger, plus at least with the autoloader gun, but also with the cyclic gun, I do like to play it with vertical stabilizer, and I do think that as it is a heavy tank, just like on the tier 7 tank, it is much more important to use or to improve the gun handling skills or the gun statistic instead of having a good view range. Now, talking about the upgrading sequence, the good news is that you can fully equip your tank before you have to unlock the tracks, even with the radio. So just go for the upgraded gun, for the upgraded turret, maybe for the single shot gun, then upgrade the engine, upgrade the radio, and then at the end you can upgrade the tracks. Okay, here we are in the first battle with our TNH 105. We are spawning on Westfield in a tier 6 to tier 8 matchup, and let's first of all take a look at the map and see what options we have. Spawning on Westfield in the north, the situation usually looks like this, and with your heavy tank, in my opinion, you do have to go to this brawling area here, the little hill in the north, because that is where the game is won, I would say, 60 to 70% of the time. Alright, so we are definitely trying to win the northern part of the map. First of all, because we are heavy tank. Second, because we do have at least some gun depression. 7 degrees is not perfect to work here, however, better than nothing. And yeah, third is the position is super important, and most of the time, as I said, decides whether your team is winning or not. Alright, so we're trying to make a first spot. Looks like our tank destroyers are not so much supporting us, which is bad. However, with only 1 artillery, we can peek out here and see whether we get spotted. And yes, we are spotted. So let's fall back and let's see. Right, looks like the Skoda T56 is approaching, and he is, in my opinion, the most dangerous adversary that we have in this game. The IS-3 Alpha is also pretty dangerous. However, its gun handling is even worse. There he is, even worse than the one of the Skoda T56. Now let's see, maybe we can get a shot on the IS-3 Alpha. Let's see. As you can see, we do have to peek out quite significantly in order to get a shot on him. And as you can see, the gun handling of the TNH 105. It just does not feel pretty nice. The aim time of 2.59 seconds in conjunction with the 0.38 gun dispersion it just does not feel great, and you really have to take your time to aim in your shots in order to hit where you were aiming. So yeah, all in all, I mean, it's nice to have an autoloader, don't get me wrong. However, it just does not feel as competitive as it should be with this tank. Here you go, IS-3 Alpha is not managing to hit our cupola. Nice. You always, with this tank, you always have to keep moving if you're fighting in a close combat, because you should not allow your opponents to easily hit your weak spot. This is what I am trying to say. Alright, so far so good. 2 versus 2 to 4. However, here you go now. Okay, looks like the IS-3 Alpha is making pressure, and so we can get 2 shots on him. However, as you can see, fortunately he missed at least 1 shot. Looks like our team is helping us, which is nice. But in this situation, if you are in a 1v1 fight, this is where the 2-shot autoloader gun does have a significant disadvantage, because your DPM is dropping to 1564, and even compared to the Progetto 54, like with the Progetto 54, you have the same bad DPM. However, with the Progetto 54, I would have waited after my first shot, so I would have dealt, I don't know, 240 or so. I would have waited, and then I would have had, after, I don't know, let's say 10 seconds or so, I would have had 3 additional shots, and so I could deal much more damage with the Progetto 54. Shooting once, then waiting for the reload of the full clip, and then shooting all the 3 shots. This is the advantage of an auto reloading gun instead, or compared to an auto reload or auto loader that this tank has. And so yeah, in a 1v1 situation, you are basically set up for failure due to your lack of DPM. Now on the other hand, obviously, you can rip apart especially low tier tanks with your 2-shot autoloader gun, dealing 640 damage. This is very, very dangerous for tier 6 tanks, even for tier 7 tanks. And so yeah, it is a trade-off, and we'll see the TNH 105 1000 later on in the game with the single shot gun. Alright, so looks like we could at least get rid of the 2 dangerous opponents, the 2 tier 8 heavy tanks, and now we can make some pressure. However, we should still continue to play smart, because we have lost half of our hit points. Okay, looks like the Super Hellcat is spotted, looks like he is AFK, but I'm afraid of the tank destroyer in the back of the map. I know it is only a tier 6 tank, however, even a tier 6 tank can deal damage, so I would just try to move forward. Here you go. And now let's get our shots. Now this is where the 2-shot autoloader gun is super nice, because you can just clip out an entire tier 6 tank. Oh, too bad. Too bad the AMX CDA set us on fire, so we should definitely move back. 2300 damage so far, which is not too bad. However, we have lost almost all of our hit points, so we are 1-shot and we do need to play cautiously. So the game plan now is not to advance via the 1 or 2 lane, but to drive back and see whether we can support our team from the second line, maybe in the city, where we can just peek out and maybe deal damage to one or another tank. Now in this game my tank was not fully upgraded, so it lacks a little bit of mobility. However, we'll come to this. Let's see if we can take out the Swiss one. Okay, we are too late. We'll come to this in the next video when my tank is upgraded. And all in all, I mean, I am playing this tank with a turbocharger, but the mobility is lackluster. I was quite disappointed of the mobility of this tank, and once again, even the Progetto or the Progetto 54, which is in my opinion the direct counterpart of this tank, does have a better mobility, and it just The WoT 54 fits much better into the role of a mobile medium armored heavy tank. And the problem of this tank is, yes, it does have on paper the better armor, however the huge cupola on top means that your armor is pretty much not worth it. Your mobility is a little bit lower, plus the gun handling is worse, plus you don't have the benefit of an auto reloader. So all in all, yeah, I am a little bit disappointed of this tank, and we'll see how the next games go. Meanwhile, let's see if we can get a shot on the AMX. Here you go. If we take our time to aim in, then the gun will definitely hit. However, you have to consider that you do have to fully aim in, or almost fully aim in your shots. Alright, 3000 damage in this game, which is a great result, 3900 overall. And let's now see how we can use this tank in a low tier scenario. Alright, second game. This time we are in a tier 10 matchup with 3 artilleries spawning on Karelia, and let's now take a look at the map and see what options we have. Spawning on Karelia in the south, this is how the situation usually looks like, and with heavy tank you have two options. You can go to the brawling area in the south, or you can go to the area in the north. However, once you are crossing here, chances are that this medium or light tank is spotting you, and then you are receiving fire from the side while moving to the north. And so instead, also depending on whether I'm top tier or not, I want to go to this position because here I can arrive without getting hit, plus I can get crossfire on the guys that are also trying to move to the northern part of the area. Okay, so this is a completely different scenario than the previous game, because we are low tier and we talked about the armor profile of the tank against the tier 9 and tier 10 tanks. So we do need to play much more cautiously, and this is why we are definitely going towards this defensive position. It is a pretty defensive position, so we will most likely not support our team too much, at least attacking on one or another flank. However, we will set up a good defensive position, and I think this will help us to win the game. Now, in such a situation, we definitely do have an advantage with an autoloader that has a very little or short intra-clip reload of only 2 seconds. So once enemies are crossing this little gap, we will definitely be able to punish them. And I think this will help out our team. Looks like the M60 and the Pershing are going to the south, and here you go. This is what I want to see, and due to the fact that we have only a 2-second intro clip reload, we can deal 724 damage to the AE phase 1. Super nice start of the game, and now we just want to fall back into this position behind some cover, and then see if we can punish some other tanks. Looks like the TNH 105 managed to squeeze through, and here you go. This is the Skoda T50. Alright, looks like the Sumo SM is also there, and looks like the Skoda T56 is also moving towards this position. And once again, this is the perfect scenario for the TNH 105 1000, a situation where you can clip out your opponents, plus a situation where you are fully aimed in, standing behind some cover, waiting for your enemies to do mistakes. With this tank, with the bad aiming time and the bad gun dispersion, you do have a problem to move out of cover on a ridgeline and then make a snapshot on your opponents, because most likely you will miss your shots because of the bad gun handling of the tanks. So this is the dream scenario where you can just be fully aimed in and wait for your opponents to do mistakes. Now, on the other hand, this also means that you are limited to only a couple of situations. For example, like this game right here. So yeah, I would love to support the teammates in the north. However, I am very sure and convinced that there is an enemy tank in the C5 position. So once I would move out of this position, I would get spotted, and I would most likely be taken out of the game. So we will just wait here and see how the game is developing. If our team is losing in the north, then we still have the possibility maybe to fight here defensively and try to hold up the enemy push. Looks like our team is pretty much successful in the south, and also looks like that the situation has stabilized in the north. 5-1. So our game plan is that we will wait here until our team has won the north, and then once the Jagdtiger or the Samoa SM are doing one or another mistake, we will try to punish them. Meanwhile, our 1-1B is making pressure in the south, and you know what? 8-1. It is time to move out. There are only 4 tanks remaining besides the artillery. 2 are in the south, so only 2 tanks here, the Samoa and the Jagdtiger, and so here you go. Samoa SM is waiting in the north, and once again, this is the perfect scenario. Okay, let's fall back. Perfect scenario for an autoloader gun, because you can pump out your damage and deal damage. And now we are relocating. Meanwhile, our clip is reloaded. The 20 seconds of reload time approximately are not too bad for this. And then once we've reloaded, we can once again deal out 640 damage and then fall back into cover once again. Now let's see if we can track him. Here you go. And now as he is tracked, we don't care. We just keep him tracked, and now we get all the sweet assisting damage. And yeah, 2,600 damage, 1,400 assisting damage, sorry, and so all in all 4k damage. And yeah, we will not get any more shots on the artillery. This was a kind of a perfect scenario, and in this scenario we obviously had a much better chance to deal damage with a 2-shot autoloader gun compared to the single-shot gun. So in my opinion, the autoloader gun is more fun to play. However, we'll now see a situation in which the single-shot gun actually does have an advantage, and in my opinion it is pretty much competitive, the single-shot gun compared to the 2-shot autoloader gun, due to the much better gun handling, and we'll see this in the next video. Okay, third game. We are on Paris, spawning on the western side, and let's see what options we have on this map. Spawning on Paris in the west with a heavy tank, there's only one option in my opinion, and that is this little hull-down position right here, because this position is super overpowered in the game, and in my opinion, in most of the time the southern flank decides which team is going to win the battle. So go to this position, try to win the south, and then you can win the map. Alright, so we are definitely going to the brawling area in the city, and yeah, we are in a top tier situation in a tier 6 match. However, as you will see, we will be fighting against tier 8 competitors, so basically this is for our part a tier 8 matchup. And we'll see that in a brawling situation, the single-shot gun does have an advantage due to the fact that you do have a much better DPM, almost 2,000 or 2,000 compared to 1,560. So this is a situation where the single-shot gun does have a clear advantage compared to the 2-shot autoloader gun. Alright, so we will set up a defensive position here with with the help of the magic rock that covers most of our tank. However, the problem is that we do have a cupola, which is relatively easy to hit. Meanwhile, we are taking a shot on the enemy VZ44-1. As you can see, the gun is relatively precise. 0.34 accuracy is super nice, and yeah, it feels much more convenient to play the single-shot gun compared to the autoloader gun. The single-shot gun is definitely competitive, and in general, I tried out a lot of scenarios with the single-shot and also the 2-shot autoloader gun, and I have to say that the gun handling is much better. However, the reload is nonetheless relatively high in my opinion, and so besides being in such a brawling situation, the autoloader gun just gives you the opportunity to really punish your opponents, to pump out 640 damage So for most scenarios, I would say the two-shot autoloader gun is better. However, in such a situation, the single-shot gun does have a clear advantage. Alright, now as you could see, we are trying to hide ourselves behind the rock as much as possible. However, the enemies did have the chance to hit our cupola, and so now we do have to fall back. We cannot allow ourselves to lose even more hit points, and now we have to wait until the enemies do one or another mistake. And now the new game plan is to not peek out, but just to wait until the enemy, in this case the TS5, has shot, and so as soon as he has taken a shot, we will move out and try to punish him. Okay, right, now he has shot, so that gives us the time to move out. We should be... Okay, here you go. We need to be quick for that, because the reload of the TS5 is superb. A tank with a super nice DPM, however he has just shot again, so that gives us the time to deal more damage. Alright. Now let's see, I would like to punish the IS-6B, however as soon as we are peeking out we will most likely get a shot, so he's looking towards us, so also looks like the TS5 is facing us, so... The good thing about this better gun handling is obviously in such a brawling situation you are in a much better position to hit the weak spots of the enemy tank. So this is another advantage of this gun compared to the two-shot autoloader gun. Alright, so the TS5 has shot once again. Now we missed that shot. Too bad. We failed to penetrate him. Let's see. Looks like the enemy team is advancing. The two VZ44-1s are advancing, so nice. The IS-6B is taken out of the game. Here you go, he has shot once again, so let's see if we can take another shot. And now looks like our... Okay. Alright, so 73 hit points remaining. Now we do need to avoid every single shot. Fortunately, that was a massive low roll of the TS5. So, yeah, let's fall back. Alright, no, looks like the enemy two VZ44-1s are pretty much dead. And now let's see if we can get another shot. Ah, too bad. He just turned around and now he's looking towards us, so we do need to play cautiously. Okay, he is just turned around. The problem is we cannot peek out of cover because now he's turning. Alright, now. Excellent. Now he's turning, so that gives us the chance to, here you go, to finish him off. So yeah, 2,500 damage. As you can see, in like this is the situation in which the single shotgun does have an advantage. There is another situation, and that would be if you are playing very, very defensively. And trying to snipe with the gun. However, as I said before, if you would be sniping in the back of the map, then you could set up a defensive position just like we did in the previous game with the TNH 105, and in this situation you would then be able to obviously deal or pump out more damage with the two-shot autoloader gun. So all in all, what do I think about this tank? Well, my summary is I am a little bit disappointed of this tank. The mobility is good, but not as good as the one of the WoT 54. The armor is good, but it has a huge weak spot on top, which kind of makes this tank useless, or the armor of the tank useless. And the gun, in my opinion, the autoloader gun is fun to play. However, the gun handling is pretty bad, and in conjunction with this, you only have 7 degrees of gun depression, so playing this tank on a ridgeline is pretty tough due to the lack of gun depression. And I mean, lack of gun depression is maybe the wrong expression for 7 degrees, but yeah, it's just like in every single regard this tank does have a little drawback. And overall, I must say that I was pretty disappointed of this tank, and I will definitely sell this tank as soon as I have unlocked the tier 9 tank. The tier 7 tank, which was much more fun to play, and yeah, so all in all, I do think that this tank is how could you say, balanced too much, and in my opinion it is definitely one of the weaker tanks on tier 8. Yeah, so all in all I was pretty disappointed. Alright guys, that was it for today with the TNH 105 1000. What do you think about this Czech heavy tank? Are you as disappointed as I am, or do you think that it is competitive? Leave me a comment in the comment section down below. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Consider subscribing to my channel, and I see you next time in another World of Tanks video.